everyone, Julian here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make new future house in the style of like True Concept, JLV, New Aspect, these kind of artists, the kind of stuff you would hear on the YouTube channel Selected. So yeah, as usual, you can get the project file and samples and MIDI and presets from this video in the description for just $5 on my Bandcamp. It's the first link. And if you want to support me, it's a great way to do it. And yeah, let's dive in. So this is the project file you heard in the intro, and I'm just going to go through all the layers one by one. We're at 122 BPM, pretty standard kind of house tempo. And yeah, so the first layer here is this bass, which sounds like this. So the bass is just playing these notes, which are the root notes of the chords, so pretty simple there. And it's a very simple FM deep house bass patch. So basically what I have going on here is it's two sine waves in operator, doing a little bit of FM. The first one is at 0.5 on the coarse pitch, and the second one is at 2 on the coarse pitch. And then I have this envelope set for both of them so that they're both kind of like quick and plucky. Honestly, you wouldn't want this to be like a long sound or like a sound that kind of evolves over time. With these kind of basses, you want it to just be like a quick sort of pluck. So that's why I set those envelopes like that. I also have a pitch envelope on here in operator, which if I turn off the auto pan, you'll hear a little more. You can hear it's just a quick little, like barely a click, but more of just like a little attack at the beginning of the sound. And as you can see also, this is very subtle. Like I have the decay time very short, and it's not really going up that high to begin with. So yeah, it's just like a very subtle little pitch envelope on there. Again, just to give each note a little bit of attack. So the next thing I have on here is this auto pan, and you may notice I'm using it a little weirdly. What I'm actually doing with this auto pan here is I'm using it as sort of like a faux sidechain effect. So if you don't know what auto pan's doing, essentially when you have auto pan in the auto panning mode, basically what it's doing is it's turning the volume of each ear up and down. Like it's turning the left ear up while it's turning the right ear down, and so on and so forth. If you mess with this phase knob, which I'll show you on a new one, if you turn this phase knob down, it'll only be messing with the volume basically of the mono signal. So now it's affecting the volume. So once you have this, all you have to do is shape it into like I said, like a faux kind of sidechain. So the way you go about doing that is first you got to switch it to the saw waveform, and then click on this normal switch to invert it. So you can see we have like this kind of a curve. And then all you got to do after that is just click on this BPM syncing on the rate here, and then turn it to quarter notes, and there you go. Now you can even shape this a little bit with this shape knob. So it's actually very controllable. But yeah, I just like doing this instead of actually side chaining when you're working with 4 on the floor beats like this, because it's just a little bit easier to work with. Like with that shape knob, you can really kind of like, you know, get control of this. Whereas if you were side chaining like to your kick or something, it would just get kind of like, I mean, it's just hard to control. Whereas this, yeah, like I said, it's a little bit more controllable. The next layer I'm going to show you are these chords, which sound like this. So these are really simple as well. They're also just some kind of basic FM stuff. Basically what we have going on here is I have a square wave, and the second oscillator I have a sine wave, which is up an octave from the first one, because you can see coarse pitch on the first one is at 1, coarse pitch on the second one is at 2. And yeah, this one is only on very subtly, but it's just giving a little bit of FM to oscillator 1. The main thing with this kind of sound is just to let this square wave kind of like just go without inhibiting too much. But adding this little FM did kind of give it a nice texture, so I went ahead and did that. So after that, what I have here is I have the filter, which as you can see is set like this. So the envelope is at like 95%. I need glasses. The envelope is set there, so it's going like almost all the way up and then coming back down. and you can hear it's just making like this kind of pluck sound. I also have a pitch envelope on this one as well, similar to the bass. As you can see, again, it's just a really short kind of click. Yeah, it just kind of makes it a little bit more percussive and a little bit more punchy. So after operator, I have this reverb, which is just doing a little bit. It's just giving it a little bit of space. You can hear it, yeah, like I said, just giving it some space. And then the next thing I have here is this audio effect track, which actually is a little bit unnecessary because, as you can see, there's just one thing in here. Originally, I had 2 reverbs, and both of their dry wets were sort of routed to this knob here, but you really only need one to do this. And this reverb is here to do those little sweeps that you hear. So all these things at the end of, I guess, every 4 bars. Those little reverb sweeps, the way I accomplish those is essentially you have a part in the MIDI like right here where it's just open. There are those notes there, but they're just the last chord ringing out. So basically you have a blank spot in your MIDI, and then you make like a little automation on the dry wet of a reverb there to sort of go up like a ramp, just over that one quarter note, like this, as you can see basically. And then you turn the decay time up a bit, and you get this kind of like reverb sweep effect. This is a really cool effect. I think it's really useful. Obviously it's used a ton in this style, so it's cool to know how to do it. And yeah, that's how you do it. It's just the reverb dry wet automation. So the next thing I have is an EQ8, which is just cutting out most of the low end. And then is boosting the high end a tiny bit, but not too much. I mean, it's very subtle. But yeah, that's just on there to mostly cut low end. And then I have an auto pan, which is actually doing, I don't know why there's an automation on that, but this auto pan is doing the same thing as the one on the bass was that I was talking about. It's just doing like the kind of faux sidechain effect. So the next thing I have here is the lead, which sounds like this. It's this little string one-shot sound. And this actually kind of brings me to a point that I wanted to talk about with this, which is mixing one-shots and synths for your sort of synth sounds. So something with this style I've noticed, like, obviously if you know, like, sort of like a lot of, like, kind of kalimba and bell and mallet type of sounds are very popular, as well as sounds like this. But most importantly, it's, like, sounds that are kind of, like, not synth sounds. Like, in this case, it's a little staccato string sample, like I said, like a kalimba or a mallet or like brass, any of that kind of stuff that you can't really make authentically in a synth. It's important to have layers like that over top of your synth. So that's what I have here. I have this and then this lead. And so this lead is just playing all the thirds of these chords. If you look at the chord synth, basically we have our root notes. We have our root notes, and then we have what's called our thirds above it, which are basically these minor and major thirds that make up these chords. As you can hear, those aren't the same notes. The lead is playing, basically, yeah, these top notes, the lead notes, and all it's doing is, it's actually pretty simple. Basically, yeah, it's just this string one shot. And mixing these with, like I said, like synth sounds, just kind of gives it a lot more depth, and it's like a wider palette, so your music sounds kind of more interesting, if that makes any sense. But yeah, so I have the one shot, and then I just have a reverb. The processing here is actually very similar to the chords. I just have this little reverb for some extra space. I have this audio effect track, the same one you heard on the chords. It's doing the little sweeps. I'll show you the automation. So yeah, same thing here. And then I have an EQ, and then I have this auto pan doing another sidechain type effect. So yeah, again, with these kind of layers, it's pretty simple, you know, like you can just copy the MIDI onto it or whatever, but it's important to stack stuff like this. So yeah, so next thing I want to show you actually is this little reverb effect. As you can tell, reverb effects are kind of important for this style, but the one I'm talking about is this. And in the context of the track, it sounds like this. So the way I made this thing basically was I took these, basically I put these chords and this lead in a group. And what you can do once those are in a group is you can record them onto like an audio track. So what I did here was I set the routing, and then, yeah, so we have 3 chords, or excuse me, we're going to put 2 group. We have 2 group going through this audio channel. So now when I hit record, it just recorded. So what I did basically was I recorded this one note, and then I took it, and I'll just do this quickly and show you. Basically, I think I turned off or got rid of a little bit of that transient there. But you get like this very short snippet of the sound, basically, and then you put a reverb on it with like a ton of dry wet and like a long decay time, and then you basically freeze it and then flatten that, and what you end up with is this. So basically, you end up with this reverb tail. And what you can do then is you can grab it and, like, say I'll put it here. You can then reverse that, and you get like this, which is very short, so, you know, it may not sound like that cool, but if you had a little fade, it just gives you that quick little thing. So then I did that, and then on top of that, I added this erosion, so I'll show you. If you listen to it, it's got the erosion, just kind of like giving it a little bit of like grit and crunch and sort of like digital, yeah, just kind of like grit, I guess. So this is just a nice effect to sort of go into the next part. And yeah, I mean, it's just a really simple thing that I did, and it sounds pretty cool, so definitely I would try to do stuff like that in your own tracks. So next thing I will show you are the drums. Drums are very simple. They sound like this. So just very simple, straightforward, like deep house kind of drums. Really nothing too special here. I have this drum rack here first and foremost, which is housing all of the hi-hats. And as you can see, I have like 3 closed hi-hats and then 1 open hi-hat. And the open hi-hat is playing like the main notes, like the upbeats, so to speak. And then as you can see, these closed hi-hats are just playing these little 16th notes here and there, kind of like just giving it a little bit of swing. And one thing I'll note here is if you listen, you can tell the closed hi-hats are way quieter than the open hi-hat. This is something you want to do, like when you make these kind of hi-hat patterns where they're like really skippy and jumpy like this and you have a lot of hi-hats. Like I said, you want to have it be kind of like quieter. Like as you can see, the velocity on the little extra notes is a lot smaller than the velocities of these open hi-hats, which are playing more frequently and are sort of like the lead instrument here. So yeah, that's really simple. I just have the drum rack. I don't really like using drum racks that much, but for stuff like this, I do like using it when you have like a group of sounds that are all kind of in the same range. And the only other thing I want to talk about here also, since we're on drums, is groove. So if you notice here, I have a groove. It's just adding some swing. I also have the same one applied to like the bass and the chords and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, having the groove on there just gives it some swing. And kind of like, the reason why I did them all just off of a groove as opposed to like by hand is, yes, it is a little bit easier to do it with a groove, but when you have a lot of things like this that need to be swung, I mean, in some cases you wouldn't want this, but in this case, because you're making, like, with deep house, it's such a like straightforward and very clean genre, you don't want to have it be too messy. So you want to have the same groove on all of your layers that have groove, if that makes any sense. So yeah, so next thing is just the kick. It's just a simple kick. Just like a really quick and punchy kind of kick works for this style. I don't have any processing on there. Pretty simple. But the next thing I want to talk about is a clap, which actually is a little bit of stuff. It's 2 layers, and it sounds like this. So basically what I have going on here is, like I said, 2 layers. The first one is this layer, which is more like stereo and kind of like it's got a little bit going into it as well, you can see. So it's kind of just giving us like, you know, a nice kind of like softer clap as sort of like, I guess, the body of the sound. And then there's the second one, which sounds like this. And I have that one converted to mono, and as you can hear, this one is a lot shorter, and it's much more of just like a quick hit. So what you get from this one is, like I said, just like the quick hit and sort of like the impact. And then with this one, like I said, it's a little bit softer, and it just gives it body. And the claps in this style are very important. It's very much like supposed to be, something like I said, it's just a very important thing for this sound, I think, to have these kind of like big sounding claps. So it's important to layer a stereo one like this one with just a really clean, like quick impact kind of one, like the second one. So the only other thing really to show you here are these two crashes, which are pretty simple. They just sound like this. Whoops, the claps are still playing. Okay, the crashes sound like this. Pretty simple. And then I just have this reverse crash here. And then these both have that same auto pan on them, doing like the kind of fake sidechain effect. So yeah, I mean, like, that's really it. Like I said, the main things are like the FM sound design, the combining the synths with like one-shot sounds, and then also the stuff I was talking about with swing and groove is very important as well. So that's going to be it for today, guys. Make sure to let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Make sure to like this video and subscribe, and maybe even share the video if it really helped you out. You can get the samples and project file and MIDI and presets from this video in the description for just $5. And I will see you guys again tomorrow with another tutorial.